Today I'm going to make a cake of one of the most epic video games of all time.
Mortal Kombat.
The first thing I have to do is really difficult. I have to pick which character I'm gonna make. There's so many good ones. My name is Natalie Sideserf and I make cakes that don't look like cakes. And today I'm going to make a Mortal Kombat 1 cake. Huge thank you to Warner Brothers Games for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description below for more info. All right, very excited for this. Let's go. I'm starting out with a generic chocolate bus with no head because that head is going to be cake. And now I really gotta figure out who I'm gonna make. There are so many characters to choose from. I'm sitting here going through them and I'm just like, that one's awesome. That one's awesome. That one's also awesome. We're all awesome. Some of these characters are nostalgic to me from when I played Mortal Kombat as a young Natalie, going back to the 90s. And the newer characters are super interesting. They've got these like awesome outfits and fatalities, but I can only choose one. Who am I gonna choose? I am going to make a cake of Reptile. I'm making a bust of Reptile. The coolest thing about Reptile, aside from him wearing green, you know I love green, is that he has a human form, but his natural form is actually a lizard. And in the game, he can shapeshift back and forth, from human to lizard, to human to lizard. Now, since I can't make a cake shapeshift, or can I? No, that's too far. I can't actually make it shapeshift. But I can come up with a way to reference his ability to shapeshift. It is one of the coolest things about him. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but I am going to find a way. I'm gonna have to think about it a bit while I work on the cake. I turn my opponents into cake and then I eat their faces off. I just add a nose, and if I don't like the way it looks, I just rip it off and eat it. Oh my goodness, I could be a character in Mortal Kombat. You hear that, WB Games? You wanna add a Natalie Sideserf character? Speaking of WB Games, thank you again for sponsoring this video. I'm having a lot of fun making this cake. Now that I'm starting to sculpt, let's talk about some of my design choices. The reason I chose to make a bust cake of Reptile rather than a full body figure is because I can make a bust cake life-size. Reptile's clothes have so many cool textures. And since this cake is life-size, I can include a ton of detail. Like his green mask. I'm gonna sculpt all kinds of fabric folds and texture. It's gonna look really cool. Mortal Kombat 1 is the latest title in the Mortal Kombat franchise, developed by NetherRealm Studios. And there is a lot of hype around this game. Rightfully so. The characters are so thoughtfully made. They look amazing and they each have their own interesting storyline. It really brings them to life and makes each one fun to play. So this newest title, Mortal Kombat 1, takes place in a reborn universe that's created by Liu Kang, who is the god of fire. And the different stages where the fights take place are so detailed. Like, look at this stage. I just want to hang out in the background. It's gorgeous here. You can start playing Mortal Kombat 1 today with the Premium Edition, which includes Kombat Pack 1, giving you access to Quan Chi, Ermac, and Takeda, along with guest characters Peacemaker, Omni-Man, and Homelander, once they release. The chocolate's at room temperature. It's a little hard, so I warm it up a bit so it takes texture much better. Even though I know that this looks pretty weird right now, the face is actually starting to come together. I mean, look at these eyes. They look like human eyes. Sure, the back of his head is exposed, but I promise some of the most difficult parts to sculpt in this cake are taken care of. Oh, it's so fun to add skin texture. That tool I'm using is actually a dog toothbrush. It's time to work on his shoulders. Reptile's wearing some shoulder pads, so I'm cutting out black modeling chocolate into that shape. The shoulder pads have a lizard texture. Now I could hand sculpt the lizard texture, but I just so happen to have a texture mat that would be perfect for this. And here it is. Would you look at that? I just place it over top the modeling chocolate, press a rolling pin over top, and peel it away.
Quite the time saver.
And this is a really detailed cake, so I need to save time where I can. All right, let's add the shoulder pad to his shoulder. I'm just putting a little water down to make things sticky and secure the shoulder pad. Remember what I said earlier about how one of the most important things about Reptile is that he can shapeshift into a lizard? Well, I really want to reference that. How can I possibly incorporate a lizard element in this cake? There's got to be a way. I'm thinking I can include lizard texture in his other shoulder. Like he's starting to shift into a lizard, and it's made its way up to his shoulder, and the rest of his human form is about to shift into lizard too. So it's like a still moment where he's in the process of shifting. Yeah, I think I could do that. I'm almost finished with his clothes, and then I'll work on that lizard skin. I just gotta add some fun spikes in that shoulder pad. Best way to add spikes? scissors. It's so satisfying snipping modeling chocolate. Okay, let's add that lizard skin. I'm gonna have it kind of coming across his chest diagonally. And sculpting lizard skin is
So fun.
there are no rules. I'm using my knuckle to create texture and getting good use out of that dog toothbrush. I'm happy I added this lizard skin. Now I can't stress this enough. Painting this cake is really gonna bring it to life. I spent all that time sculpting all that texture, and painting it really makes it pop. I'm not kidding, you're about to see what I mean. I typically like to start with the eyes first, and I'm really excited to paint Reptile's eyes, cause they're this like yellowy green color. Oh, and adding the pupil, it just makes it look far more human. Well, lizard human in this case. They're not quite human, which makes it fun. Now for the skin, I like to build up lots of layers of color. You're gonna see some warm browns and some cool browns. I'm gonna throw some green in there, some blue in there. All these different colors help to make the skin look more natural and more realistic. The whites of our eyes are never truly white, so I'm adding some shadows. Something that I really like to do when I make portrait cakes is to paint the eyebrows. I really like to paint each individual little hair. I find it satisfying. Now, Reptile happens to have a face tattoo, which is kind of cool because it's like one of those defining features. You see that tattoo, you know it's Reptile. It's really starting to come together. Now that the face is painted, are you ready for a texture overload? Look at this fabric mask. Looking all fabric-y. Just wait, now I'm gonna add some highlights. Yes, these look awesome. Gotta paint his clothes and his lizard skin. And of course, the spiky silver shoulder pad. And finally, the piece of clothing that makes Reptile look like Reptile. His black hood. And there you have it, a bust cake of Reptile from Mortal Kombat 1. There are so many different textures going on here. We've got soft fabric, hard spikes. We've even got scales. This was a really fun cake to make. Such an interesting character. I'm glad I picked Reptile. Which fighter would you have picked? All right, let's cut the cake. Let's finish it. Yes! Cutting bust cakes is the best. The standard edition of Mortal Kombat 1 launches on September 19th on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, PC, and Nintendo Switch. Thank you so much, Warner Brothers Games, for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description below for more info on Mortal Kombat 1, and I'll see you next week for another cake.